What's going on? In today's video, I'm going to be going over some past UFC fights, some more recent than others. Basically, these are all the big fights we missed out on as UFC fans, right? Some of them, like I said, more current. Some, were like 10 years or so ago. But these are just big fights that the UFC has a habit of just fumbling the bag on, right? And we're seeing it in this day and age, right? Like the Islam Topuria fight, we might miss out on that, right? That's just one of them. So, without further ado, let's jump into this list. You're gonna see a lot of John Jones on this list, right? You're gonna see a lot of John Jones. Starting with John Jones, Anthony Rumble Johnson. Now, these two were scheduled to fight at one point. I think it actually was, I don't know if it was before the first DC fight or after the DC fight. They were scheduled to fight. John Jones got in trouble. Um, Rumble actually ended up fighting DC for the vacant belt and, obviously got rear naked choked in like the second or third round. Dropped DC in the first, got choked out in the second. Stylistically, I think Rumble would have done very well against John Jones, right? Good leg kicks, one punch, insane KO power. John has historically struggled with bigger opponents. You look at the first Gustafsson fight, you look at the Dominic Reyes fight, you look at the God, I always forget, Thiago Santos fight. John struggled. Those were close fights. Rumble hit harder than every single one of those guys. He had the cardio to go 25 minutes. He had really good wrestling defense, except for when it came to DC. But I honestly think DC is a better MMA wrestler than Jones. I know Jones out wrestled him in that first fight. But looking at this fight stylistically, dude, I think this was a winnable fight for Rumble. And it would have been super interesting to see this fight unfold. I think Rumble beats John Jones. If they would have fought back then, I think Rumble would have beat him. I think he would have put hands on him for 25 minutes, stuffed most of the takedowns. The oblique kicks are a question. Maybe John oblique kicks the living shit out of his legs and takes his base out from underneath him, and Rumble crumbles to the mat. John finishes him off there, but like I feel like this was a very winnable fight, but again, we'll never know. Again, RIP Rumble, legend in the light heavyweight division. Next, of course, Tom Aspinall, John Jones. Let's just call it what it is. John ran from Tom Aspinall, period, point blank. He sold us wolf tickets, said he was probably going to come back for another fight, ended up retiring when the UFC tried to force the issue with the Tom Aspinall fight. This is one of those fights, like, I know it's so easy to hate John Jones, and we all want to be like, Tom would crumble him in round one, KO. I don't know, man. This is one of those fights. It's like, dude, John, love him or hate him, John knows how to win. He's one of the most dynamic mixed martial artists, one of the greatest mixed martial artists all time. It pains me to say it, but it's true. You got to give respect where it's due inside the cage. And this was an interesting fight, dude, because if Tom can't get John out of the first round or two, what happens from there, right? John might be hitting his oblique kicks. John might be chopping at the legs of Aspinall. Aspinall might slow down. Like, that's the big question when it comes to a guy like Tom Aspinall. Does he have the cardio to go 25? What would have happened in that John fight? We'll never know. It's interesting because, like, I don't know if Tom Aspinall wins this fight 100%, dude. I really don't. Like, this is one of those fights that it's like, it could honestly go either way. It could honestly go either way. John Jones, Dominic Reyes 2, right? The first fight, Dominic Reyes got robbed. He got robbed. I've watched this fight multiple times. He won the first three. John turned it up and beat his ass round 4 and 5. He was picking him apart round 4 and 5. And because of that, they gave him the fight. Complete bullshit. He turned down the rematch with Dominic Reyes, decided he was going to go to heavyweight and step away, vacate the belt. And I believe Reyes got knocked out for the vacant light heavyweight belt against Jan Blachowicz. But again, dude, this is a rematch that should have taken place. Especially a guy like John Jones. You want to know why this guy gets so much crap? He ducks Tom Aspinall. He ducks Dominic Reyes in the rematch. If you're a true champion, you're going to want to get that one back and solidify it. He did it against Gustafsson. A lot of people thought he lost the first Gus fight. He came back, won the second fight in dominant fashion, cleared that first Gustafsson fight, in my opinion, by dominating him in the second fight. This is always going to be a what if. Like, what if Dominic Reyes would have gotten that immediate rematch because he got robbed? You know, we'll never know. He gave John massive problems the first fight. John ducked him for the second fight, decided to take 4 years off, 3 years off for a heavyweight move. So that's a big one there for Dominic Reyes. And this kind of changed the course of this guy's career. It's sad to see because I don't think he's ever going to become a champion. You know, which brings me to this weekend's fight. I have Carlos Oberg beating Dominic Reyes by really boring decision. Crowd's going to be booing. So just a side note there. We got another John fight, another John Duck. Are you seeing the theme here of why people are taking him off their GOAT, their number one GOAT? Why he's getting downgraded, okay? He ducks the Dominic Reyes rematch. He ducks Tom Aspinall and retires. I swear, he ducks Francis Ngannou. They were offering him, well, I don't know if they're offering him big money. But this guy wants to start making demands when it comes to guys like this. He wants $30 million. Apparently, he needed 3-4 years to move up to heavyweight. Meanwhile, this guy was king the whole time. Dude, as soon as Francis leaves and goes to the PFL, who comes out of the woodwork to fight for the vacant? Within a few months, dude, I swear to God, it was in like 3-4 months of Francis vacating the belt and leaving the UFC. Within 3 to 4 months, this guy was fighting Cyril Gane for the vacant belt. How fucking convenient. How convenient, dude. So, that's why I don't have John Jones as my GOAT anymore, dude. GOATs don't duck. Real ones don't duck the hard fights, and he ducked this fight. Again, to John Jones' credit, I don't know what happens in this fight, dude. Can he avoid the power of Francis? Is Francis going to put him out in round 1, round 2? Or is John just going to be really crafty, hit the oblique kicks, chop at those tree trunk legs of Francis over 5 rounds, land nasty elbows? I believe he probably would have had a reach advantage in that fight, right? Longest reach in the UFC, I think. So, dude, that was an interesting fight. What would have happened? We'll never know. Because John ducked so many legit people, right? Dude, the last 5-6 years of John's career is just like, it's a bit of a joke, man. It's a bit of a joke. He dodged the hardest fights with guys who were in their prime at the time. He's dodged all of them. He's dodged all of them, dude. TJ Dillashaw, Mighty Mouse. Now, this was a fight that the UFC was trying to make. That's where a lot of beef between Dana and Mighty Mouse took place because Dana just wasn't offering this guy enough money to fight TJ Dillashaw. He really wasn't. DJ asked for $2 million. Okay? Keep in mind, this is a guy who is on the Mount Rushmore of MMA, Mighty Mouse. 11 title defenses. Or was it 12? 11. 11 title defenses, dude. Dominated that division for so fucking long, the flyweight division. They tried to make the TJ fight. They wouldn't give Mighty anything he asked for. Like, most of his title fights, half of his title fights, I think, or a little bit over half, weren't even on pay-per-view. He didn't collect pay-per-view points. $2 million to line this fight up, and you couldn't even fucking do it? And he also had another counteroffer when they turned down the money. He said, okay, well, if I'm going to put my belt up, TJ should put his belt up too. They wouldn't do that either, bro. So the UFC fumbled the bag on this, because Dana White, his whole thing with Mighty Mouse is, you're not a draw, dude. You don't sell. Well, hey, dumbass. Maybe if you put him on more pay-per-views, he would have sold. But half his career, you had him on fight nights. So, they fumbled the bag on this one. This would have been a really interesting one. TJ was really tricky on the feet. He had really good wrestling. Mighty was the smaller guy. This would have been an interesting one, dude. I think this could have been a potential war, right? Both have insane cardio, speed, wrestling, striking. Like, this is one of those that's like, I don't know. At the time, prime TJ Dillashaw, before he got on the EPO, I don't know, man. What would have happened? Maybe TJ was just too depleted at flyweight like he was with Henry, and he would have gotten finished quick by DJ like Henry finished him. I don't know, dude. I could see this fight being an absolute all-out war. Split decision type stuff at the end of that. But again, UFC fumbles the bag. Dominic Cruz, Renan Barão. I feel like there's a lot of people that don't know how good Renan Barão was. Prime Renan Barão. Dude, this guy defended, like, when Cruz went down with injury, he beat Uriah Faber for the vacant bantamweight title. And I think he defended the interim title like 2-3 times, dude. 2-3 times. I feel so bad for this guy because he defended the interim belt. Finally, they stripped Cruz like 3 years later, and this guy became the official world champion. Finally gets the belt, the actual real belt, not the interim belt. And then in his first defense, TJ Dillashaw absolutely smokes him. So, this was a fight. I think they had it booked when Cruz came back after he beat Mizugaki the first time. This fight was booked. Cruz tore his ACL for the 37th time. Never got to see this fight. Like, this was an interesting fight, dude. Prime Renan Barão, dude, this guy was will kicking, spinning back kicking people into oblivion, knocking people out left and right. He was on a 30-fight win streak, dude. I think he lost his first pro fight and then went on a 30-fight win streak, got the belt, beat Uriah Faber twice, KO'd guys like Eddie Wineland. I mean, this guy was an absolute nightmare. I remember watching this guy in his prime thinking, dude, nobody is going to beat this guy until he retires. That's how good Renan Barão was. And it's just oh man, that Cruz fight. You wanted to see that Cruz fight because Cruz was at the time the most dominant bantamweight champion of all time. I think he had 3 title defenses, but it wasn't meant to be. Things didn't align because of injury, and TJ Dillashaw, his time was starting and smoked Renan Barão twice. We'll never get to know what would have happened in that fight. I would have leaned probably Renan Barão, dude, just because of the power and just how dynamic he was. Because Cruz never had that finishing potential, dude. Cruz was a decisionator, man. He was just gonna dance around with his fancy footwork, and maybe he would have given him problems because TJ had really good footwork, was cutting constant angles, and it was a nightmare for Barão to deal with. TJ Dillashaw, he probably still has nightmares about TJ Dillashaw. So maybe Cruz could have done the same thing, but again, we'll never know. GSP Anderson Silva. Dude, this is one of the biggest ones all time that we'll never get to see, right? Both guys ruled over their divisions for 7-8 years simultaneously. Both were top of the pound for pound list, right? Anderson Silva, at the time, I wish I would have appreciated him more because I fucking hated his antics inside the cage. He was so good that he would just humiliate guys in there. He'd be emoting on them, taunting them, dodging all their punches, busting them up on the feet. If he didn't finish you in brutal fashion, he was just going to humiliate you and ridicule you in there for 25 minutes straight. And I just remember them trying to set this fight up. When GSP came back from the ACL injury and fought Carlos Condit, he was in attendance. It was looking like they were going to set that fight up post-fight if George won, right? Anderson's in the crowd. He's dialed in. He's watching George like a hawk. And it was this moment where it was this is it, dude. George wins this fight. We're going to get the Silva fight. I wanted someone to kick Silva's ass, dude. Because he was close. And then he got the rematch. And then Anderson Silva finished him in round 2. George was supposed to be the guy to beat. This was good versus evil. George was the good guy, the humble guy, the true martial artist. Silva was the guy who he taunted, he humiliated people. He was constantly talking shit in the cage, being disrespectful. I wanted so badly for George to kick this guy's ass, man. And it's that post-fight, that call-out never came. I don't know if George didn't want the fight or what, or if Silva didn't want the fight. It just never happened. They were talking about it for a few years. I don't know, man. It's just, I don't know what happened there. Things fell apart. Anderson Silva went on to lose to Chris Weidman. And I think they were trying to line up a Jones fight with Silva. After the Chris Weidman fight, if he would have won that fight, they were looking at Jones. So I don't know, man. Looking at that fight, I know it's pretty easy for a lot of people to say, oh, George, Anderson has a hole in the grappling. George would have taken him down and beat him up for 25 minutes. Maybe, but if you look at this fight, Silva has the size. the reach, right? Every moment you're on the feet with this guy in his prime is a danger. Is a danger to you. So this could have been a war, dude. Like I do favor George in that to control, like with the shoot box style, right? The jab, the 1-2, duck under, time to take down, control Silva on the ground. Um, Most likely, I think this fight would have been a bit of a war. George would have taken a lot of fucking damage in that fight. His face would have been visibly beaten up, but I think he would have had more control time to win this. But I don't know, dude. Maybe Silva finishes him. This was just a fight that was so sad to see fall apart. Both guys, like, literally were at the top for so long and just never crossed paths. Like, massive, massive fumble, dude. Massive fumble by the UFC on that one. All right, last but not least, GSP Khabib Nurmagomedov. Now, after George had retired, like he basically ignored everybody. I know. Tyron Woodley tried calling him back to the welterweight division to beat the welterweight GOAT. George wasn't interested in it. He was like, nah, get out of here. I think Kamaru even called him out a couple times. He didn't want that fight. I remember him saying on multiple podcasts that he was interested and gearing up for that fight with Khabib. Right? Now, this was right before the pandemic. George, I think he was planning on dropping to lightweight, or maybe Khabib was going to go up to, I don't know. I don't know what it was. This was the one fight George was willing to come out of retirement for. And then things happen with Khabib's dad. He passes from COVID. George, like, he thought, like, George, literally, I remember him saying on a podcast, he was waiting for Khabib to call him out. I think he even thought Khabib was going to call him out after he beat Gaethje in his last UFC fight. There was supposed to, in George's mind, there was supposed to be a call out. Khabib was supposed to call him out to see, who one of the greatest ever is. And George was interested in that fight. He was ready for that fight. He was confident he could beat Khabib. Khabib unfortunately retired because he just didn't want to continue on in his career without his dad. So we'll never get to know, dude. And this is probably one of the biggest what if fights. One of the biggest fights that could have been made in UFC history. Both men were so dominant, such good grappling that it's like, you honestly wonder who would have come out on top in that match. I do give George the edge on the feet, right? Very good jab, very good hands, power advantage, bit of a size advantage on Khabib, but both men lean heavily on the grappling, and it would have been interesting to see who the better grappler is. Who can impose their will in the grappling more? Who can impose their overall game more, George or Khabib? Like, this is the biggest fight that ever could have been made. We'll never get to see it. Khabib retired, and it's like, this is kind of a thing with the UFC, dude. Like, once every, 10 years, I feel like we get a big fight, right? Like, I remember back in the day, it was GSP versus BJ Penn, UFC 94. BJ came up. At that point, BJ had defended the lightweight belt 3 times easily, smoked everybody in that division. Nobody could fucking deal with BJ. He went up to fight GSP. Obviously, we know how that ended. George dominated. But, since then, it's like, dude, there hasn't been really any super fights. We haven't seen any super fights. I don't consider Michael Bisping GSP a super fight, bro. We haven't seen it, right? Ilya Charles is not a super fight, okay? The last, kind of super fight we got was Volkanovski, Islam Makhachev. And even then, dude, that's not, in my opinion, that's not on the level and the magnitude of a BJ Penn GSP. Because, dude, I think at that point, let me tally it up here. George got the belt back UFC 87. Oh, maybe it is, because I think that was George's second title defense was BJ Penn, because he had defended against John Fitch at UFC 87. Yeah, so that was George's second title defense was BJ Penn. BJ Penn had defended the belt multiple times with 2 defending champions fighting, right? Even Islam Volk, that was a big fight, but Volk had defended, I think, 3-4 times at that point in featherweight. Islam had just won the belt and then called for that fight to take pound for pound, right? So, dude, at this point, GSP had done everything he had done in the welterweight division, 9 title defenses, won the middleweight belt, retired. Khabib had defended the belt 3 times at that point. He was 29-0. This would have been such a huge fight. So these are just some of the biggest ones that come to mind. I know there's a ton of probably potential other ones that maybe didn't cross my mind or weren't as big, but these are just some of the biggest fights that could have been made all time. And we just never got to see it, dude. The UFC is not good at locking down super fights. Like their last definition of a super fight was Jones-Stipe. Give me a break, man. Give me a break. So yeah, that's what I got for today. These are the biggest fights I picked out. Let me know your thoughts in the comments. Let me know some potential. Let me know some of the fights that come to mind for you that were just fumbled by the UFC, that were really big fights that we missed out on as UFC fans. So until next time, like the video, drop me subscribe. Let me know your thoughts in the comments. Till next time, see ya.